belay that order and fall in now for the conclusion of episode or mission 2, Breaking Away of Operation Emberfall. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see you all again. Love all the chatter I've seen recently on Twitter about the show. Welcome to my fabulous wing. I want to start off by saying straight away that Eliza, who plays our fantastic forceful Phoenix Crash, will not be here tonight, nor will she be here for the following couple of weeks. She has a prior commitment that she has to square away and get addressed, but she will rejoin us later in the season. For this mission tonight, we'll carry on with the rest of her wing, as well as resolve sort of what her character is going to be doing over the next few weeks. And then have to see if Wing 023, who has still not given me a name, by the way. Yeah, so hopefully we can resolve that tonight. But we'll see if Wing 023 can provide us with. We'll be backfilled with some replacements, as often is the case in real life. So with all that said, how's everybody doing tonight? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Brady already dipped out, and she's back with a thumbs up. So it must have been great. So yeah, anybody have anything cool to talk about? Anything they want to hype or plug or anything like that? Any cool shows are on? Brady, and your 9 shows per week are on? Anything you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, y'all, Clear Skies here on Monday, this here on Tuesday. On Thursday, we're recording our vampire game, which is gonna be amazing. Well, tomorrow. Jesus, I keep saying Thursday, but I mean tomorrow we're gonna be recording our vampire game, which will be going live. I will let you know when. And then Saturdays, come play Dino Boys with us. Can you hear this dog going crazy in the background?
I absolutely can.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the mailman is a threat to us, y'all.
That's fair.
So this is wonderful. Anyway, yeah, that's all I got.
Cool. Aria, you're on like 5 different shows as well.
Yeah, on
Must
Sundays.
be a thing.
Like we do. Am I plugging? I don't know what we're doing.
You're plugging.
Plug
You're
away.
plugging.
Okay,
Please.
cool. On Sundays, you can catch me on Critical Bard channel playing Creature Collectors. On Mondays, you can catch me on D&D's channel playing Grime of the Frost Maiden. Tuesdays are here. And then in a couple weeks, we'll be spinning Salt Bay back up and doing a bunch of one-shots until I decide when I want to start running another campaign in that time slot over on Saving Throw. On Wednesdays, you can catch Pirates of the Leviathan. On Thursdays is Department of Mysteries over on Dragons and Things. Fridays is Dice Envy Plays. Over on my work channel. And then, there's a big announcement this week that's going to drop for another big campaign coming out soon, but gotta wait because Twitch says not yet.
We often do. Aaron, how are you? How are the writing and things?
Good. I'm a ghostwriter. I never have anything to talk about.
Ghost Rider. Well, that doesn't mean your presence isn't felt, as most ghosts are. Well, cool. I have nothing really big to plug other than we're doing some cool stuff over at the AMC Walking Dead Universe channel, twitch.tv/TWD Universe. Got some cool things happening over there. Clark Wolf is going to be doing some new stuff this week. That's about it. Probably shouldn't have announced that yet, but that's okay. Other than that, I think we're ready to get in. Tonight's going to be a little bit different. We are going to start not where we left off. Where we left off was with Wing 023 deployed to an area right outside of the fens, tracking a squad of bone chariots who were en route with unknown mission and purpose. Their mission was simple. Their Wing 023 was dispatched to observe and take note of the movements and patterns of this rogue bone chariot squad to determine the true origin and origination of the Bone Legion. While doing so, they interacted with a representative of a mysterious Talu house who gave them some new technology, a feather, an earpiece communicator, where they could communicate not necessarily words, but thoughts and feelings and impressions amongst each other. The wing split into 2 with the forceful Phoenix Crash and devoted Phoenix Rama on the ground nearby where the bone chariots were making their movement, and the bitter Phoenix Smoke and the shrouded Phoenix Veil back inside of the Eyrie, doing research and observation from a higher elevated point at some great distance away. The forceful Phoenix Crash had found her way to a small cottage where she encountered a mysterious figure and a seemingly adolescent boy possessed by something. And Crash and this mysterious figure are currently engaged in combat, while the rest of Wing 023 watches on.
Is it a
Six-
situation? Oh,
Go ahead, please.
is it a situation where we've seen Crash go into this cottage and we can hear what's happening to them, or does it feel like their feather has gone dead?
I will have answers for that
Cool.
after we recap the events of 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, I believe it's your third or fourth day back into the world as Phoenixes. You have begun your training in earnest back on the Grand Eyrie, on the volcanic island of Pyre. You have been training in combat techniques, training to harness your newfound powers, but also educating yourselves on all of the time that you have missed and the happenings of the Delaying Empire since you've been dead. And even more so, you've been learning not just the history of the Empire, but the history of Dawn Command. You are seated in a classroom while a shrouded Phoenix of rank 4, we'll call them Ink, is giving a primer on the history of Dawn Command. Through this class, you learn that the first Phoenixes appeared over close to 600 years ago. And as Ink is writing with chalk on a piece of actual slate, slate that is smooth and framed like a chalkboard, as they draw with this kind of grayish chalk, the pictures and pictograms that they are drawing come to life and recreate basic animations of the events that they're describing. Ink is female non-binary presenting with a series of black feathers over their shoulders. On their belt loop of their LBE, you can see a origami likeness of the Dawn Command symbol of the Phoenix folded in, and that is their talon, and positioned on the belt loop. Darker skin, short cropped hair, eyes that are jet black. And as they are drawing, they are saying, For it was Latus, Doltali, a Doltalu philosopher who realized that the existing kingdoms of the Dark Ages would not sustain human life. And so, Latus committed to paper and to tablet and to scroll what became known as the Imperial Philosophies, and later the Dawn Codex. Through the power of his written word and through the unimpeachableness of his argument for civility and community and togetherness, he was able to unite the people of the Grimwald, the Wendari, the Skavi, and even some of the Talu houses. He showed a light of a pathway to a new type of civilization. So naturally, he was vilified by the people. He was given permission, which is another way of saying imprisoned, upon a volcanic isle that he was told would be a paradise for him and his followers to build their new society. Convinced that they would tear each other apart, especially after many of the independent kingdoms would send their prisoners to Pyre as punishment. Imagine their shock when out of the least of these nations, Latus created a nation underneath their own feet. He created a new civilization, a template for what humanity could be. As such, certain Talu houses dispatched massive armies to eliminate them. We are not sure what happened next, but we know that Latus, with his 1,000 followers, unleashed tremendous magic in the then active volcano of Pyre, completely eliminating the armies upon the shore. The Talu houses thought that they were rid of their threat, but in reality, those 1,000 dead bodies were born again as the first 1,000 phoenixes. And Latus no longer went by that name. He was known as the devoted phoenix savant. Then came the conquest and the unification of the land. Latus would go on to die his final death, but would be replaced by the Durant Phoenix Aegis, who became the first emperor of the Delayan kingdom. Aegis was succeeded by Verity, the Shrouded Phoenix, who rooted out corruption and helped solidify the newly formed bonds of the Imperium. And after Verity was destroyed and died her final death, she was succeeded by the last Phoenix Emperor, Justice, the Durant Phoenix. It was Justice who had to deal with the fallout of the Civil War, as a humanist movement decided it was time for humans to guide their own fate. And indeed it was, after many bloody and unnecessary battles upon which where humans unleashed weapons of horrific destructive capability, and after the lack of a proper navy stalled the humanist movement's progress upon taking Pyre. In her wisdom, Justice saw that the only way forward was to peacefully secede power after so much bloodshed. As part of her commitment, she sacrificed herself to her final death, to exile in the Crucible where she resides to this day. And from that point on, a human has ruled the Delayan Kingdom. The Phoenix Imperium, the Dawn Legion, became Dawn Command, at service of humans. Which brings us to a time where phoenixes were not needed and mostly forgotten, and up until this day. So, class, are there any questions? Well then, the rest of the day is yours. Fall out for chow, if you decide. Otherwise, report back here at 1000 tomorrow. We will go into the dynamics of Scavian cuisine. And they leave the room. The class, which consists of your wing and a couple of stragglers from other wings, some newly reborn phoenixes who haven't been attached or assigned to other wings yet, is dismissed, and you are led. You go outside into the grand hall. This is roughly the second floor, just above the barracks. And indeed, you see a giant mural, one that later, Smoke, you would recognize as a reasonable facsimile of the one on the ceiling at the Evergreen Eyrie, where you are currently stationed. But this one is obviously made of volcanic stone, much more detail, much more thought, and much more physical likenesses. You see the likeness of Savant. You see the likeness of Aegis. And over in the corner, you see the Winter Marshal, or the Shrouded Marshal Winter, standing, looking at a section of the mural roughly 2/3 of the way down. Seemingly lost in her thoughts, except you know that a Shrouded Marshal is never lost in her thoughts. Perhaps she's reflecting, perhaps she is remembering, perhaps she is actively contemplating something. But she seems focused on a specific part of the mural, standing there in solitude.
Yeah, real talk. Smoke, that lesson kind of went over Smoke's head. I think that for them, they've only been in this world for a few days, you've mentioned. And I think that they're still learning this concept of just like, and now like we sit and we learn in a structured environment. That's still very strange to them. So they're appreciative of this mural for the visual guide. What does it look like Winter specifically looking at, even if they're kind of like lost in their thoughts? Like what part of history is it?
As you make your way over to her, because you'd have to get a little closer to her.
Yeah, I'd like to get a little closer to her, but it is like Smoke is trying not to like engage in conversation. It's more like I think that they're very much still in their like animalistic like tendencies, I would say. So it's like you've got your spot over there and I'm gonna stay in my spot over here, but I'm just like peeking in because I'm curious.
Got it. So you walk over to her, and just like when you were a human child and you would try to get into some mischief behind your mother's back, you get this sense that even though you're behind her, she knows exactly what you're doing, but doesn't immediately let on. So you get a little bit closer. Her posture, nothing about her changes or breaks. But you're able to see that you're at a section based on the little fragments that you heard and remembered. This is roughly the section after, right around the time of Aegis's rule. You see a tall, thin Durant. A lot of Durants get beefy and kind of bulky. This Durant is a little bit different. This Durant is tall and slender, with a crown upon his head of Paraean steel, and something resembling a more open cloak, kind of late stage Aragorn, if you had to put but obviously not human. Like this is a rank 6 Phoenix roughly. You see the Durant, you see 6 chevrons on one arm, like that part changed. But this is not like a battle ready look for this Phoenix. And then you see them in the front, and then they're flanked kind of in a V pattern, or a wing, you could even say, of Phoenixes sort of like in cascading layers behind them. And you recognize a couple faces. You recognize an elemental that looks more or less like Cinder, the current elemental marshal. You recognize, you definitely recognize, by peeking a little bit later on, you see another crowned figure of a shrouded, that you assume is Verity, like before she became emperor. You definitely see Justice, or not Justice, Honor. You see Honor, the current Durant Marshal, kind of in the back, like 6th or 7th tier back. You see a few other faces there. You don't see Winter there, but you see, and well represented. You don't see any bitters at this stage. You don't see any bitters. You definitely get the sense that like you're not sure when bitters came into the fold, but they are the most recent. They are the youngest, and they are sort of a newest addition and not barely formalized into an actual school, at least not in the traditional sense that the others are. So you get all of that. You see kind of like all this happen, and you kind of get that. It's interesting that Winter is looking at this part because they're not looking at like a younger depiction of themselves.
Yeah.
They're just looking at this particular moment of history.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, I think Smoke is gonna actually walk up now to the mural, and well, if you're not supposed to touch the art, too bad, because they reach forward and they tap on Honor, who is all the way in the back, and they say, "Honor," and look at Winter. Where are you?
Winter pauses for a moment. Her eyes and her gaze do not break from where she's looking. And she says, "The thing about us, little one, is that all of our successes belong to all of us, and all of our failures belong to us as well. You may not see me or my face here, but all of our fates are bound together.
Smoke turns back to the mural. I see no bitters. So that is good to hear. Also, I'm not little. And they're gonna retreat. So this was interesting.
As soon as you retreat, you hear just the very faintest of a chuckle.
Cool.
What is anybody else doing? So I know Rama and Crash. I think is kind of like moving around, like from the front to the bottom, and kind of just like looking and inspecting. And I think Crash is sort of just taking it in and observing. What is everybody else doing?
I think Rama was taking sort of assiduous notes, trying to get caught up, and is instead of like this is the before time where she kind of like started looking out for and taking Smoke under her wing, so to speak. So she's just sort of like still in the room, kind of poring over and trying to make connections and just sort of murmuring to herself and trying to put together the story of this like transition of power and what that means going forward and how she can find her place in it.
So specifically like basically like Civil War, but like essentially to use a term like the Reconstruction period, right?
Yeah,
So like,
exactly.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you walk over to that section and you see that a detail that was kind of left out in the broad overview was you see the moment of like the treaty being signed between Justice and the humanist representative movements. It's got almost like the I forget the name of those paintings. It's the Trumbull, like a Trumbull painting, like of the Revolutionary era. So it's got like in the sense that there's just a lot of people in a very like flat plane. You know what I mean? And it's just wow, everybody's in this room and everybody's facing the exact same way.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's got the trappings of a Trumbull. John Trumbull, there we go. It's got the trappings of John Trumbull, but you're picking out a couple details. One is in the background, you see someone on the Phoenix's side breaking a crown. And on the humanist side, you're seeing a brass tube or cannon being broken. And from that, you are able to sort of intimate that part of the treaty was we will relinquish our power and the crown to the Phoenix crown, the Paraean crown, in exchange for these weapons never being used again.
Yeah.
And that was sort of agreed upon. And you can see like there's just an air of like mutual respect being dealt. You get the sense from this particular image that both sides were very grateful to see the conflict end. Nobody wanted this. You also get the sense that one detail in the thing that I forgot is that originally when the Phoenixes took command as emperors of the empire, Aegis intended to only be emperor for a certain time and then transition power off of him. Phoenixes live for a super long time. When I say there's 3 emperors, that's still like 300 plus years of Phoenix rule. And a little bit further back, you would kind of notice that the human faces in the background of all these like great Phoenix works, they weren't always happy faces. You know what I mean? Like while there may have been a sense of the Phoenixes being just and believing very much in a code of honor and ethics and all this other stuff, that doesn't necessarily mean the humans felt that they were truly understood. And so now, from this point on, you're seeing prosperity and general happiness in the way that humans are depicted And then from this point on, you're seeing the Phoenixes sort of shift focus to the background. And it ending and culminating and well, now we're down Dawn Command and everything's just great. This mural obviously does not account for the dread.
Yeah.
This mural probably terminates, I mean, just probably about 80 to 100 years ago, of like current time. The current year being 594. Current year being 594, I'd say like this was probably around 500 that this particular mural was, finished, if you will. But yeah, I think that's what. Hopefully that answers what you're looking for.
Yeah, I have one little question, and I don't know if it's
Sure.
does this feel like how much like propaganda does this mural feel like?
Give me an intellect spread. Unless you're absolutely in love with your cards and you want to save them for combat.
No, let's go.
Let's go.
We love this. Okay. I don't know if I can use cursed here on this.
Nope.
Yeah, that doesn't feel right. Bleep blorp. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna be using it's diplomacy, or like tradition feels like this really like sort of nebulous thing, but I like tradition as this like we understand the thing that we're doing in our art and our culture. We are telling a story that we need to believe, not affirming a thing we already understand.
100%. Tradition, the way I define it, is slightly different in the book, but I define human tradition as tradition is both Phoenix tradition as well as empire tradition at large, like the Land Empire at large. So you understand it kind of from like both sides of this. So that is to say, if this is propaganda, it's not intentional propaganda in the sense that it probably is trying to tell an honest accounting of history, but in sanding down the rough edges and like compartmentalizing it and stripping nuance away from things. You're losing a great bit of detail. So this would be not so much Howard Zinn's The People's History of the United States. It would be much more closer to like your 10th grade U.S. history book. You know what I mean?
Okay,
so
cool.
It's got like that kind of feel to it.
Sweet. So I've got 9 on the cards, plus 5 is 14, and I'll burn a spark to get to 15.
Great. So all of that, I would say that the what you're noticing is that sort of like sanding down and compartmentalizing is not just for the benefit of the Phoenixes. The way some of the humans are depicted, you can tell that as an Empress, Verity, the second Phoenix Emperor, who was shrouded, you can kind of piece together that a shrouded Empress with a lot of expertise in spycraft and all this other stuff would probably interpret the Dawn Codex as a strong commitment to root out corruption. And in doing so, like a highly empowered CIA or FBI probably stepped on a lot of innocent toes to do so. There's artwork depicting, not gulags, but like it's like a conquering, like with Verity there, like in front of like a prison barge. Of humans. And so you're like, well, there's a few ways you could read that. You know? So and knowing that after her reign is over, even though Justice was one who oversaw the administration leading into the Civil War, you could tell that there were a lot of things done there that sowed the seeds for it. This is not at all an allegory for the United States, and no,
not at all
whatsoever.
Ooh, I'm picking up what you're putting down, and it feels so good.
Good. Read James McPherson, y'all. So and 1619. So you're you get that sense of it. You get the sense of like, any growth has a byproduct that if not properly addressed festers, and you can see both sides of it playing into this, as it were. Cool. Vale, what are you up to?
Vale is going to linger near Rama, but she's going to be looking at the part of the mural for justice and what happened to her, and she's just going to kind of wonder aloud, I wonder what happened to her ashes.
Great question. Go ahead and give me a lore check.
Okay.
While you're doing
Yeah, I
that,
got nothing.
okay, it's all right. Intellect check of any kind, like just go calculate your number, and
Let's
I'll
see,
start.
3, 4,
Um,
5, 10. And I have extensive training in hidden motion.
So extensive train's pretty good. So I'll go ahead and give you, and with your lore, I'll go ahead and bump
Yeah,
that
that
to like,
sounds great.
I'll bump that to 16.
Oh, I'm sorry, 15. It has a value of 5 when unused in a skill spread.
There we go. Cool. So you're noticing two things. You're getting a lot of subtle detail out of Justice's reign. Her depiction overall is someone is very empathetic to her, whoever did this. Kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. And really, her reign is more defined by how she chose to end it than sort of anything she did in it. That peaceful transfer of power was quintessential in her legacy, both on the human and on the Phoenix side. The things around her surrender and her execution that she thought of herself, she did, and she made a show of it. There was like a formal thing around it that was like public, and it wasn't a sad thing. It was like you could tell that she gave like a whole big speech probably about sacrifice and how she's been endurant because there was some kind of like famous speech of like requiring strength to endure the pain of watching people she's known for hundreds upon hundreds of years lose their final lives, pain of watching the humans die in such great numbers. But it is fitting that she end her final life in what is essentially a devoted death, considering a devoted brought the Phoenixes into this world. And so there's like a great bit of poetry around that. The events of her, you can tell that like a lot of the depictions of her are her contemplating bad, like decisions with bad choices. And then the other small detail you're noticing is really subtle, but it's in the background. There's a few different depictions of the Imperial Flame in Pyre, where you are, and you're getting the sense that as the war waged on, it's not just that Phoenixes are dying their final death and not coming back. There are Phoenixes who are dying their second, third, fourth death who aren't coming back. Because, and you think back to something you learned in your time in the Crucible, which is a Phoenix only returns if they feel their cause is just. You all even the bitter was presented an opportunity to view the world as it is and what would be asked of them. And you were given a choice. You all elected to come back into this world. And you're getting the sense that as the war waged on, there were some Phoenixes that were just like, this isn't what I signed up for. I'm choosing not to come back. So, in the combination of fewer and fewer Phoenixes being reborn, and then fewer people becoming Phoenixes at all, and some Phoenixes dying their final deaths, part of it is just simply a calculation of logistics. She didn't have, the Phoenixes were never fully a threat of being extinguished, but the stalemate could have lasted generations. And it was the only sensible choice for her to make. Later on, and damn it for your specific ask, later on, you see, I might require a separate check for this. You see a city on the sea, a big human city on the sea, right on the coast of the inner sea. With a beautiful skyline, really just a thriving metropolis, if you will, and her ashes being interned in a very large palace there. But the way it's depicted, you're getting the sense of like in her human life, that's where she was from originally, was in this great battle. You see that in her sort of like her execution, if you will, her voluntary surrender. It was in the same location, so that she gives her speech, she submits to the blade, and then her ashes belong there, somewhere in this big city by the sea with a beautiful harbor, and San Diego. No, in this beautiful like sort of like warm beaches and birds and very picturesque descriptions. It begins a tonal shift of the story of like of like a great dark middle second act, and then the kind of like halfway into Act 3, there's like this great turn as like the story sort of resolves. So, and as you're noticing that, that's when you're catching just a little bit of what Winter is saying to Smoke, and then Smoke skitters off, and you hear just a little bit of a chuckle as you notice that bit. So,
I'm going to ask Winter why we let the humans keep Justice's ashes.
her head cocks to the side a little bit and says, "This is what she wanted. And after all she gave, she had a right to determine where her ashes belonged. Of course, at the time, you didn't know we'd be fighting the Dread."
Why don't you ask for them back?
She walks over to the city, and her finger traces like the skyline of certain buildings. "Where are you from, my dear?"
Vale tenses a little bit, and she says, Haven.
Right. So, child of Haven, when you would look to the westward sea, and you would gaze upon the coast, thinking of a life better than what you had been given, did you not daydream of the summer shore? Did you not think upon what a different life could look for you if you weren't where you were now? Did you ever wonder about what life might be like if you lived in Westergate?
Vale gets a very distinct look of confusion on her face. I don't think you answered my question.
Westergate was where the Dread fell. The Bone Legion conquered it.
We
and
can't
sacked
get
the
them
city.
back.
That was the first. There are 2,000 Bone Legion sappers, explosives, dragons stationed and garrisoned in that city. To get there, we must cross a broken fleet with unstable munitions dotting the seascape. We must take ashore with routine patrols of Bone Legion. We must infiltrate into a subterranean cavern from which no one has seen or been heard from in 3 years, human or phoenix. So no, not on our current to-do list.
Just curious. It doesn't become more potent as we die, does it?
You are a smart one.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
And with that, we resume our timeline in media res. Your feathers in your ears all work in a very simple way. There are images, there are flashes of things that the others see that appear to you. And it's usually, it's not cloaked in detail. It's silky, it's smooth, it's fleeting. It's almost hallucinatory, but it's always pleasant, and it's never intrusive. You can multitask while experiencing these full sensory simulations. Until Crash encounters the being that she is currently engaged in combat with. Every movement this entity makes hurts. Not enough for you to distract from what you need to do now, but it's like a high-pitched noise every time this thing moves or engages with combat. And every time it lands a blow upon Crash, you feel an iciness inside of you. You cannot make out details. The face is obscured. It's got that shitty Slenderman vibe to it. It's got, when you're waking up and you have one eye half open and the other eye partially closed, and you're seeing your depth perception is a little bit off. It's hard to gauge and hard to manage. you're seeing moments, fragments of visions, all the while observing the reality of what is in front of you. Currently, Smoke and Vale, you are in the Eyrie, in the Morning View Eyrie. For your edification, you know that there's a stable of horses, and you could probably make your way down to where Rama is in about 2 turns, if you needed to. 1 turn to fully get into the barns, saddled, bridled, ready to go, and then a full turn of full sprinting for these horses to, there's a small little bridge where the horses can like cross that was a little bit further down from where you did, Rama. So to do that and to make their way over, these are fresh young horses. You can absolutely get there in about 2 turns. Rama, where you are, you're about a full, on foot, you're about a full turn away from getting to where Crash is. And you're sort of at a parallel level, although about a half a turn away from where the Bone Chariots are. And the Bone Chariots are making a beeline to that cottage. The other thing you're noticing is that the lead chariot has actually gained some distance of separation. It is breaking away from the rest of its squad, and the others are right behind it. So I don't know. So Elise is not here to pass the torch. I'm going to pass the torch to Vale. You have current eyes on the bones. You also know that if you expend a spark into your feather, you can get clarity into some of these visions. So mechanically, the way I'll allow it is this: you're not going to advance your extended skill spread for your mission by observing what's happening with Crash and this figure. You can advance your mission with your skill spread, or you can get more information with what's happening with Crash. You cannot do both simultaneously. I will allow a contribution to a skill spread in either direction. And if you decide you want to make your way down to the stables, I will allow the rest of this turn to be done for that. Those are your options right now as you see them. Or if you want to go in a different direction, you go like a sandwich, you can. You'd be a bad Phoenix, but you could, the decision is yours.
Yeah, I'm gonna start heading out towards Crash. You're muted.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. You can absolutely do that. Is there anything you want to do along the way? I will allow up until the point where you're just outside of the door of this to engage in conversation with your with Atitha, who is your sort of human Talu advisor. During this mission, there are phoenixes downstairs. There's books on this floor. There's books on the bottom floor. Whatever you want to sort of do on the way while you move, you can definitely do that. You have some options here.
As I recall, I already asked Atitha, was she sure nothing had happened in this area of note, right?
So you ask that again as you start making your way, and she's right parallel with you. And she says, I've been through all those books that pertain to do with Civil War, era history, the history of the region.
From whose perspective?
The historians, the people who would know.
The humans? And only the humans?
Human and Phoenix historians who absolutely have educated people who have dedicated their lives to determining this.
And they're fully in agreement.
Mostly. There's some things that are unknown and some details that are filled in or glossed over, and everyone has a different perspective, but it largely aligns.
And there's not even an outlier that says something happened here.
Listen, the Civil War is one of the most documented, if not the most documented, event of history outside of the conquest in the history of Delea. So if you want a historian's perspective, you won't find anything much more than beyond what I've pulled already.
Then why here? Why now?
We don't know. That's why you're here.
And she groans and just keeps running.
Okay. So you can get Smoke. You see the adults leave the room. So what would you like to do? And again, same options as before. you instinctively know that you can amplify the power of the feather by dumping a spark into it. And I will say that 1 spark gets you something, 2 spark gets you more, and not anything beyond that on a single use of it. So just keep that.
No, I think that Smoke sees Vale run out, like knows that like Crash probably needs their help, and so they're gonna can you pronounce her name one more time? Ataitha. Great. So they're actually gonna go to Ataitha and like in the same urgency, they're gonna take their hand and look up at them and kind of and kind of not necessarily plead, but like with that urgency, go, I do not trust you because you are from a house, but I think we need your help. Will you come ride with us?
Her eyes go a little wide and say, I am a historian and an intelligence gatherer and an advisor to my mistress. I am not going to be of any use to you fighting these things. I wouldn't even know where to begin.
And I am a child, and yet here we are. If there's anything to be learned about the history of that place, you are far more likely to recognize it than any of us. We will keep you safe. We don't have much time. And she's gonna try and like tug her hand because she's like an assistant child. So I don't know if is there any way I can like roll to convince?
I would say, I think you've already done it.
Okay, great.
So okay, pause for 1 second, please.
Mm-hmm. Oh no.
As he leans away, what are we gonna do? Oh, he's this is going great.
Yeah, this is going great. This is going great.
Fine. This is fine.
Okay, so we're gonna do a quick 5-minute break if that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Yay, we're at the 1 hour. Does
Woo, woo.
Smoke get a Taita to come along with them? I have no clue. We're about
Wing 023 at ease. We are back. Right with Smoke tugging the sleeve of Ataitha, the Talu envoy, who is here to provide historical context and help guide the research of proving or disproving the theories surrounding the bone. Obviously, the situation has escalated. Things have changed. A fellow Phoenix is at peril, but the mission remains. And as much as we pursue different objectives of protecting a nearby village or protecting one of our own, we still have to find a way to observe our mission. And in doing so, Smoke has, this child, through a little bit of shaming, has convinced this fully grown human, against their better instincts and judgment, to join our operational detachment in the field. Ataitha's eyes roll, and she's like, oh, but you've already made your way downstairs. Yeah. She quickly, at the bookcase that was downstairs that she originally pulled some of the text from, she just grabs a handful, 4 books, and I'm going to find a way to determine which book she grabs. But she grabs those and puts like a single leather strap book carrier, like they all have in Footloose for some reason, and then like snags onto it and is literally, as this child is pulling her with one arm, this trail of like books is like being flailed about like a tail in the distance. You all make your way to the stables and prepare to tack your horses. I'm going to pass the torch over to Rama. Rama, again, you are observing. You cannot see what is happening inside the cottage.
Yeah.
You get glimpses. You sense that there is an attack or a fight or an engagement. You know at least one wound has been inflicted upon Crash. You also see this Bone Chariot squad in a V formation with the lead chariot gaining even more distance, seemingly hurrying towards it before them. What do you do?
Cool. First question. just as a quick reminder, what happens when you run out of sparks?
You die.
Okay, that's what I thought. Getting low. Sun's getting real low. But whatever, we got to do it. I'm taking off and sprinting for the cottage. I'm trying to stay out of the eye line of the bone chariots if they're like looking around them or looking around at all.
Grace check.
Yeah, okay.
Movements are generally grace check. If there is a physical obstacle that must be covered, if you cannot parkour over it, then it is a strength check. If it is moving, lifting, throwing, breaking, that's a strength. Otherwise, if it's open field running, it's grace.
Sweet. I've got so little grace to go around. Inspiring. That doesn't make any sense.
Can't inspire yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you say that. That's quitter talk.
Listen,
I literally have a
in
4.
life,
Just 4.
Before I was gonna say, in life, Abria, please inspire yourself because you are inspiring. But unfortunately, Rama cannot in this game. Rama cannot inspire herself. Rama's like, I don't want to. So, all right. So you got a 4.
Yep.
You did it.
This is the best I can do.
Yeah. Okay. So you're not like you are losing distance between you and the chariots. They've proceeded well past you at this point. You will arrive there on your own next turn.
Yeah.
And you can do something. So that said, you have gotten, for a time, you were pretty close to them. So you can continue to make an observation. You can continue to tap in with your wingmate. It's up to you.
I would love to burn 2 sparks, and I'm down to my last one. I need a better signal. Like, what is happening through this feather? What is going on in there?
There is a human being in the corner, a 15-year-old boy, floating about 18 inches off the ground. You cannot hear the sound, but they are mouthing something. You can, but that is obviously obscured by this large figure. Jake, go ahead and bring up Omen.
No.
And
Jake, you could not. You could, if you don't put.
Guys, hold on 1 second, please. Hold on.
No worries.
Omen.
I want to see. Hold on. Leave it up. I don't know why I had this closed. Beep, bop, boop, boop. I want to see the scary boy. Oh, he's scary. No, thank you.
I don't think we get a choice.
Yeah, if we could have a cue card, that would be amazing. That would be just so good for me.
I can add some hearts to it. Would that be maybe some heart eyes?
Kitten ears would help.
Apologies
Honestly,
there.
yes.
Sorry about that.
Yes, it would. Thank you.
Okay, so where I left off, you see this figure in front of you. You don't know its name is Omen. Obviously, it's not a gigantic spoiler, but this creature is named Omen.
Rama just says, "Ooh, he seems like a bad omen," and then looks at the camera and continues. What's up?
It's okay. Go ahead and give me, in the midst of this, draw back up to your hand.
Oh, yeah. I always forget. Thank you.
Go ahead and give me like a, probably give me an intellect check.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. 3 and a 4 gives me 7. I'm gonna use cursed because I think she's feeling like it's that feeling of I made the wrong call up top. I shouldn't be the one out here. I think she's feeling like she is condemning and actively like cursing Crash to this fate because the people that could back her up more effectively aren't here. And I would like to burn 1 of my health in order to regain 4 sparks.
Okay. Go ahead and do that.
Sweet. All right, so that's a total of 8.
Got it. Okay, great. So you regenerate your sparks. I'll say that in lieu of your check. I'll say that is like an action that you have to do on this turn.
Okay.
The spark burn that you did to get the memory, I'll count that as like an incidental action. Let me just look at my notes here. Okay. So without doing a proper intellect check in that moment, I'll tell you on the surface layer what you see is this dark figure, multiple weapons, a staff of some kind, and you're seeing symbols of Dawn Command on their person. I will say that you do notice that the age of some of these items is incongruent with one another. So like the cloak is very distressed and very, very old. The staff is extremely old, like rusted metal. You can't even tell what kind of metal, but like very, very old rusted metal. And the sword is in relatively recent appearing condition. And a set of boots that have mud on them but look pretty clean otherwise. And then the rest of the appearance, the rest of the outfit is sort of shifting and kind of hard to pin down, and you're not really sure if it's like the static of the signal, which is definitely cleared and amplified, but it's still an imperfect science and imperfect magic. So that's kind of where we're at there. You're able to see that, you're able to move, you will get there on your next turn.
Not to stretch too far, is there an ability for me, like, can I burn sparks to send that to Smoke and Veil?
I'll say this, you burning sparks clarifies it for the team. I'll say
Okay,
that
cool.
everybody sees that.
Sweet.
Who are you passing the torch to?
I'm gonna pass it to Veil.
Okay, Veil, immediately as you get that image, go ahead and give me an intellect check. You're muted, bud.
I've got 6.
6
There's
for
this.
intellect. What are your... You have observation, right?
I do.
Add that.
So that would. So 11.
Okay. Based on the image you're getting, you are of the suspicion that this isn't a mortal utilizing Phoenix materials based on how they're moving, the fact that they were able to inflict a wound onto Crash so quickly. You are of the opinion that this is an actual Phoenix.
I'm going to send a panicked message through the feather to Rama. Don't go. Get back. It's a Phoenix.
I will say you gotta. I'll say to do that you have to burn a spark.
Okay.
Spark
Go ahead
bank.
and burn a spark. Smoke. Take a spark. Like you get a spark for your kick-ass persuasion of the human.
Yeah, Smoke's learning. These humans are easy.
There you go. Character growth.
And just as a reminder, Spark Bank is not just to regain sparks, you can also draw cards. So if your hand's feeling a little anemic, just let me know that you're taking a spark from the Spark Bank.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Cool. So you send that message. You're en route to horseback. On the way there, I'll say the communication outward is like an incidental action. So if you want to do either a check, you can actually have conversation with Atitha. Atitha and Smoke are on the same horse. I'd say Atitha is sitting behind Smoke with her arms like panicked around the waist of this child, the seeming child presenting like just like she doesn't get a lot of horseback time, I would say. But you're able to have a conversation with Atitha on the way there, and she's got her books kind of in front of her. The 4 that she was able to bring with her, she's kind of regretting bringing them, but they're there. So you're able to have a conversation with her. You're coming down the hill, so you're losing elevation in terms of observation. That said, you have a clear line of sight to the chariots, and you could. And what I'll say is because you and Smoke are in cadence together, I'll say after your turn, by the end of Smoke's turn, you will get within, I'd say, 200 yards of the cottage and where the bone chariots are. Cool? Cool. So on the way there, you can still do something.
Taitha, how far back in the history did you go and how far forward?
Listen, we were told to put effort into the Civil War, so we studied roughly 100 years before Civil War. But let's see what books I have here. Oh yes, this is great. Let's see. Yeah, we have. Oh sure. These books will be helpful. I've got. Oh, let's see. This is fantastic. I've got a copy of the Dawn Codex, which you all know. That's fantastic. At the ready, the early days of Dawn Command, super helpful there. Nothing but omnipotence could break us. Letters, poems, and songs of the Civil War. And the fire extinguished the 3 Phoenix Emperors of the late Empire, which I don't think has any relevance here. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. We researched the hell of it.
But you mostly focused on the Civil War.
Yes.
Then check the last book.
I'm sorry, out of character. The last book.
The one about the 3 Phoenix Emperors.
Yes, the 3. Yeah, there's this one about the 3 emperors of the Civil War, or 3 emperors of the Dawn Imperium before humans regained control. Frankly, you probably all know more about that than I do.
I very much doubt it. Smoke, they told us we couldn't fight the Bone Legion. Did they tell us we couldn't fight anything else?
I'm not a good person to ask about the rules of things. They told us to observe, and we are already not doing that, so why not? Does it matter?
I don't know, and I don't want to find out when we go back to Pyre.
Ataita, keep an eye out for any past patterns. I mean, I'm sure you've already picked that up by now, but there's reason to believe that they are following instincts or memories or the guidance of something else. And that's why we need you here to figure out exactly what or who that is.
So, listen, I've been awake for days looking at these things. I can tell you what they've been doing. I can tell you what they're doing now because I can still see them, but I can't tell you why. And I'm at my wit's end, and I'm going to die out on this field because a child put me on a horse.
First of all, you are not going to die on this field. Second of all, you came over here of your own choice, so we are in this together. I will not let you die.
Before your dialogue resolves with them, we're still technically in Vale's turn. So it's okay. I want to see, so even though we're all together, and this is all great RP, and I love it, mechanically, Vale, is there anything you wanted to do before we get, because I think, Smoke, you're at like a point where you will want to do something mechanically, so I want to resolve Vale's mechanical obligation before we move on.
I think that's absolutely perfect.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. All right. So go ahead and give me, I would say, if you have nothing, then I would say go ahead and give me an observation check. And this is an observation check to observe an event that's happening. It will not contribute towards the overall success of the extended skill spread, which you're at currently, which I believe the DC is 85. You are currently at like the 50 something. I'm going to calculate that right now. Yeah, you're at 71 right now. All right, so what's your
13.
observation? 13. Grace, intellect. Do you have a third card? The Space Brat?
I have Haunted. I don't think Last Stand or Horrific Vision would, unless Horrific Vision would be appropriate.
Yes.
Okay, then.
I'm trying to grok this out narratively, and yeah, it frankly would be.
16.
16, is that with your observation?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So on the surface level, what you're seeing is in the chariots, V formation, 5 chariots, 1 lead that had been breaking away to gain distance. That chariot has arrived at the cottage. As it was about to arrive at the cottage, the 5th chariot at the end again broke off to route the path of the lead one, to get in front of it, to get it to come to a stop. And it does, which gives the other 2 time, and you're seeing this too, Rama. It's giving the other 2 time to catch up. The bone, the skeleton in the lead chariot, jumps out first and draws their sword. And then the other chariot driver jumps out and draws their sword. And they begin to fight. And what you notice by using horrific visions, by using this ability that you gained in your crucible, you're noticing the offset color around them. And you've already observed this part, the fact that these bones they're kind of cloaked in a sheath of off-color light that you observe. And you're like, okay, no matter what the cause of it is, this is the animating force behind it. Like, it's nothing inside of the skeleton. It is something around the skeleton that is animating it and giving it movement. But what you notice that nobody else does is that these are not competing spirits clashing and fighting in opposition to each other. This detachment of 5 bone chariots are all controlled by the exact same entity. So these 2 fighting, and now the other 2 are jumping out. They're drawing their swords, and they're rushing towards that lead chariot driver, ready to engage in combat. These are all the same entity. And then the last thing that I'll say you notice is what's so interesting about their physical movements is that it's broad strokes, right? It's almost like writing a fight in a screenplay versus a book. Yeah? It's like these 2 fight, they draw swords and fight. Whereas opposed, like prose would be like the sweat drips off their brow, the pain that they're feeling. There's not much given to the emotion. It's all just about the simple detail that they're fighting. There's no anger in this spirit. There is no emotion, no haunting of a regular ghost. There's no unfulfilled purpose. They are going through the motions of this as if it had been done before.
Yeah, I'm pulling my horse to a stop because I call trap. I always call trap, but I'm calling trap.
You pull your horse to a stop. Smoke, it is your turn. Your wingmate has pulled their horse to a complete stop. What do you do?
I think Smoke feels like it's a bad idea for both of us to stop in the same spot. So I think they're actually going to try and like go a little bit further, maybe like even arc around the cottage towards like the back if possible. And just like try and like if we're gonna like go at this thing, we might as well go at it from 2 different angles as opposed to like approach it from the same exact angle.
Okay.
So Smoke kind of like gives you this nod, Vale, and continues on. But like slows down the pace of their horse and is more on the lookout, I would say. So that's how they're positioning themselves right now.
Okay. So that is what you are doing movement-wise. Is
Yeah.
there anything you'd like to do action-wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know what? No, unless there's anything for me to gain from an observation check, you think, other than what Vale just gained, I think that I'm good for this one.
Give me a death check.
A death check! Yes! We love that in this house. Okay, great. I would say let's do.
And I'll say this: if you can get to over 17 on this, you may come very close to cracking this mystery.
Oh shit! Is it gonna happen? Probably not. I'm so sorry. It's
Well, if you get close, I will help as best I can.
okay. Great. So let's start off with my athletics, which is starting with my death, which is starting with a 5 plus a 9, which plus a 4, which makes a 9, plus a 2, which makes an 11, plus a, let me see, not targeted.
Let me help you out. I'm gonna burn Savior. Add 5.
Yes, at 5. So that puts me at, oh my god. Okay, wait. Is there any way I can use Death Wish, Reckless, or Vengeful? Because if so, I'll hit 17.
Death Wish, Reckless, or Vengeful?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
I'll let you use Reckless if you let me dictate the action of how that's interpreted.
Absolutely. Great. Love giving my GM that kind of power. So I hit exactly 17.
Okay. 17. Okay. Okay. You cross the river. You're on the open field now. And you give your horse a little kick in the ribs, and they just start hauling. Typha almost comes out of the saddle quickly. Both of you can barely occupy the single saddle. They're a thin, woman. You are a child, but still, both of you in there. If you've ever done that, it's not easy. You're
It is not easy.
She'll get saddle sore. You'll be fine. But with that, you're able to come around, and you actually position yourself in an arcing head-on collision with where this entire party of bone chariots is in physical combat with one another. You're observing a couple things, and Rama, you can kind of see this too. But what you're seeing is that whoever that lead bone chariot person was, they are easily winning this fight. It's almost like just one bonk, and then the bones crumble into like just loose bones. So much so that like it doesn't seem like they're causing actual damage to it, but it's almost as if a play is happening. And with that, you're piecing a few things together. We go back to when you were in your first life, when you were being prepared to be sacrificed to be bound to a house god. And in that moment, you gained a view of the dawn, of the daylit, of the dusk, and of the dark. All 4 stages of existence that is theorized amongst the mortals of Delea. The dawn being the holy light, the daylit being the real physical world, the dusk being the spirit world, and the dark being the unknown beyond. You had a view of all of it in that moment before your death, and what you're seeing now is the work of dusk magic. But these are not ghosts. They are not angry spirits who have something left to do. This is a different kind of dusk entity that is animating all of this And just like your memory going back to your life as a child, you don't remember everything, but you remember key details of your life. You remember, you tell me, what are like two key details that Smoke remembers? Real small, minute details of the last moment of their original life.
Of the last
Inconsequential,
moment?
like the last 30 minutes, like inconsequential, non-important details that people tend to focus on.
How cool the tile floor was, and how I was next to a window, so I kept trying to adjust my position so that I would fall into the sunbeam because the tile was just a little too cold. So cold of the tile and me just slightly inching to like move into that sunbeam just to get a little bit warmer.
And you have this moment now where you realize that if you had to recreate that moment of your life, remembering the weight of those two particular memories, and you were to describe that, if you were to construct a reality of that for someone else, they would think like, okay, it's a sunny blizzard, it's hot and it's cold. They wouldn't know how to interpret it. It wouldn't be properly visually manifested. And you realize it just hits you. This is a memory being played out. This is somebody's memory being played out. Somebody who was here, but somebody who doesn't remember all the details. What you're seeing, the things that stand out to you of this memory, is that someone remembered one of them being so much stronger than the other, if not the actual techniques or types of combat they were engaged in, but they were very strong and very fast, and they just were so much stronger than everybody else. And that formation of how one broke away, that was like a key standout moment to somebody who could see this happening from where they were, somebody who would be looking down towards what the front of their army would be doing. Who would notice such a thing in a massive army? Who would notice such a thing of one of their own behaving in a way that was not normal or planned out? And you don't know the answer to that, but you know that all of what this is, all of what the bones are patterns based off of memory. Poorly told, partially forgotten memory, with certain details being crystal clear. And with that, you have concluded. The bitter, the knife child, has concluded with the aid of your wing and the research and the contributions of everybody else, and almost like an alarm in the remaining feathers of you all, you get this sense of, we're reliving something. This house has importance for some reason. The path of this army has importance for some reason. What this army is doing by taking cities, maybe it's going forward, maybe it's going in reverse, but these specific landmarks that the Bone Legion has hit, Westergate, Sunset, all of these different cities that have fallen to the Bone Legion have historical significance. And for some reason, so does this nondescript cottage. It is now the Bone Legion's turn. Jake, if we could get the Bone Legion card up. The Bone Chariot card up, please. The one surviving Bone Chariot rider stands for a moment over the bodies of its fellow chariot members. There was only one chariot remaining. Because even when the riders collapsed, so did their chariots, and their horses all collapsed, except for this one. The rider of that bone chariot kicks in the door of the cottage, and for a second, all of you, crystal clear, are back in Crash's shoes. She's actually inflicted a wound upon Omen. You don't know that name yet. But she's inflicted a wound upon Omen. But she's taken more herself. She's on her last health level. She has put up a valiant fight. And every time she tries to move, something has prevented that from happening. And for a second, you're in her POV. She spins around to see the bone chariot driver, face expressionless. There is some flesh on this chariot driver's face, but its movements are without passion, without seeming purpose or direction. It moves right past Crash, right past Omen, as if they weren't there, and instead embraces this child and holds them for a second before sweeping them up to carry them and running back outside. They get to their chariot, gently place them down, and the chariot continues to drive in the direction towards the city. This child, however, begins to sing. And thankfully, none of you currently are in earshot. But very soon, you will be. Smoke. Rama, it is your turn.
So I am at the cottage, yeah? So I saw like that entire
You saw all
thing.
this happen. You hear a little bit out of earshot of the singing. Enough to feel like something pulled you almost.
Okay.
But they are off.
Okay. Inside the cottage.
Oh, you want to go inside?
Yeah.
You go inside the cottage.
Yeah, I'm busting in to get Crash out. And I want to run in. Like, what do I see when I like look into the door?
You see Crash. Their attention was on this bone chariot. Crash is standing there. A few cuts on their body that are bleeding, smoldering dark blood with a little, and occasionally a little bit of fire from where the open wound is. Their resolve is strong. They're still driven in purpose. Their knuckles have a little bit of damage on them and a little bit of blood on them too. Their talon in one hand. And before you, you see a shifty persona of someone. Their face, you can't get focus on it. It's completely dark and silhouetted. You can make out eyes, but you cannot see for the life of you. Every time your eyes focus, it shifts again and your eyes have to refocus. Their body is a little bit easier to identify. They have an LBE similar to yours with various things on it, some of them much older than others. Dust all around them. And when they see you, they are almost annoyed by another one.
Cool. That's super rude.
Why don't you go ahead and so that's what you see.
So my goal here is to get to Crash, and I would like to use my ability. I'm going to burn a spark and transfer wounds from her. I want her back up, and I'm just going to tell her to run. So how many wounds does she have? Because I know I can't take. I don't know if I can take all of them.
As a reaction, 1 second. Bring up a stat block. So sorry, 1 second.
Oh, you're good.
As a reaction, I didn't intend for you to make it quite so fast here. As a reaction, I would say that, gosh dang it, there we go. Okay. All right. as a reaction, you see him open he extends his arm this way, and you see a bare forearm that looks like a mix of charred skin, but it almost seems like it's by design. That it's actually, instead of a char or burnt appearance, it is actually nothing but a series of intricately patterned wavy lines of dark, mysterious ink. Almost like as if, whatchamacallit, almost as if like a Damascus steel, but flesh.
Ooh,
yeah.
cool.
So as you do that, he extends his arm, a section of his arm glows, and you are frozen in place, and you cannot move nor act. And he looks at both of you and says, what are you, 21, 22, 23, something like that? Well, it's been fun, but got a timeline I gotta stick to. And his blade lands upon Crash, taking her last health level, reducing her to ash.
Hold on. Did I only have to be adjacent? I don't have to make contact. Was I not able to do the thing?
You had eyesight with him, and he has
I don't like this guy. What a
he
butt.
has certain abilities.
He's a butt, and I want you to know it.
Jake, change Omen's name to Butt, please.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
But he looks at you for a second and goes, maybe later. We should talk. And wraps his cloak around him, and he disappears.
Sweet. I don't know if I can move enough to scream, but she does.
About 15 seconds after he disappears, whatever took hold of you fades, and you can now scream.
Cool. Yeah. I would like this to be loud enough that like even the friends on horseback can hear it. And she's kind of just like over Crash's ash.
Got it. Who would you like to pass the torch to?
Let's pass it to Smoke.
Smoke. You have a single bone chariot, what appears to be a human in a chariot heading towards you on a collision course. You also have a mortal in your saddle.
Cool.
Well, you've promised not to get killed, I feel the need to point out.
Yeah, and now that I have Mortal in my saddle, Smoke is like, dang it, I gotta protect something now. So Smoke is gonna give chase. I think that if it had just been her on this horseback, it would have been she is going here. I just realized what she's gonna do. She's gonna basically say run to her riding partner and then jump off said horse. And the ideal would be to like duck and cover into some like nice bush. But yeah, so she'd like to get Miss Librarian out of there as fast as possible. Get the horse going in the other direction, and she'd like to face this bone chariot as much as possible.
All right. Okay, so there's a few things we have to resolve here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I need several different notes up at once. I will stall for time as I tell you that Atitha, you say this to Atitha goes, wait, what? What are you're leaving? And then as you jump off, and you have to jump to smack the horse on its butt.
Yeah.
But you do that, and the horse startles off. I'm going to say that the horse goes in a South by Southwest fashion. that essentially, like instinctually, it will go back to the Eyrie. Like it just knows
Yeah.
that's where it's
Where
stable.
home
That's
is.
where it go. Yeah.
Go
So
back home.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, South by Southeast is where it would be going. So that would take it out of trajectory of this chariot. So you have no, there's no like worry about intercepting a Tytha or this horse. They'll
Right.
clear each other by a little bit.
Right.
However, as this chariot approaches,
Uh-huh.
you begin to hear a little ditty. And I mentioned this, I think, in the last mission, but what you hear is a song that is one voice, but it sounds about like 20 or 30 separate voices singing at once that cannot sing too well. Partially is because this person who is singing, this whisperer, Jake, their voice has been long exhausted by singing this chant on route.
Oh boy.
So let's see here. What you hear is something similar to Sacred Harp singing of the Appalachian tradition, which is a lot of voices singing discordantly with one another. It's been singing on the way to you. By the time it gets within full earshot of you, the lyrics you hear are in the Piraean language.
Mhm.
So you understand it. You understand that to a human, this would just sound kind of like gibberish. But what you hear, this particular chorus is, and I'm not going to sing it because there's no great way to get the harmony of this, but it's essentially, don't hesitate, my love, you've gone this far. Their road leads to fire. This earth doesn't care for what we need, what we breathe, a frontier of green or of dust. As you hear this, you feel an instinctive pull to join in.
No.
However, you are a phoenix, so you're able to resist that urge to join in for now. This is something that prolonged exposure to, and you've had a little bit of training with how to encounter the chant. But this is the chant. This is the viral curse that has taken most of Eastern Alona and has made several attempts. Mardenford, the city of Mardenford in Alona, fell to the chant about 4 months ago.
Cool.
So as you're able to resist that, however, you hear a Tytha join in. And a Tytha is on a horse heading back to the Eyrie. So, in terms of your physical action, you have a bone chariot driver with a chant whisperer en route to a city.
Cool.
And you have now a human Talu advisor connected to the minister for the Talu representatives of the House en route back to an active Eyrie.
Cool.
What would you like to do?
So, in all my learnings, has there been any, like, I don't know, like, any counteraction to the chant, correct?
Here's what you know. Wing 018 encountered the chant as it tried to make encroachment upon the capital roughly 3 months ago.
Okay.
You know that at great cost, including one bitter Phoenix, who was ultimately able to help put a stop to it. You know that the chant is a song that is the perpetual effect of a spell created by someone long, long ago who was trying to tell a story of loss and horror upon their own murderers, right? So this necromancer from the Shadowvar, whose name you can't quite remember right now because I can't remember right now, created the chant long ago, and it has only recently resurfaced as part of the Dread. Whatever is motivating the Dread has weaponized the chant. The lyrics to this thing were written on a stone tablet. Fragments of that tablet were broken, so anywhere there's a chant tablet, the chant can spread. You know that in order to, I know, it's so exciting. In order to mitigate the effects of a chant, you can, because the chant just takes over regular human bodies. There's two ways to stop a chant, Frank. One.
2 minutes to stop how long?
I'm sorry, there's two ways to stop a chant.
Oh, got it. I heard 2 minutes, and I was like, great,
no.
I'm on a timer.
No, you can take as long as you want. However, the chant spreads to anybody in earshot. Any mortal in earshot immediately succumbs.
Cool.
There's the only way to cure somebody. If you can find the tablet, the fragment of a tablet, and destroy it, it will neutralize the chant within a certain area. Or you can kill all the humans that the chant is currently occupied with.
Nah, son.
So and here's the thing: the humans who have the chant will sing it and like fight until they're dead, because the chant compels them to attack anybody in sight. So your options now, if you can find a fragment of a chant tablet. My daughter's actively trying to pull my microphone. Are we good? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. All right.
Thank you.
So if you can find the tablet, you can basically purify the tablet and destroy it. You can't smash it with a hammer, or that won't do anything. But if you can purify it by performing a ritual, dumping sparks into it, essentially doing what you did on the Fear Sphere for the harvest, a similar type of magic that is a little more complicated can cleanse it. Or if you can isolate all the humans who are infected until they die.
Okay, I got it. How far is Vale from the running horse?
Vale could probably, on Vale's next turn, on Vale's next turn, Vale could intercept.
Okay, cool. So Smoke wants to phone a friend, and that friend is Vale, and basically convey Atitha has the chant. We cannot let her get back to the city. She's approaching on the horse. Are you able to get to her?
Yeah, Vale's gonna go to intercept without really even answering.
Great. I think that for my actual action, though, is I would like to get out of the direct line of get out of the Bone Chariot's line of sight as much as possible, so that I can observe to see if they've got some sort of tablet on them. Holy shit, buddy, are you okay? Yes, he's fine.
I love how my daughter and your dog are determined to completely
destroy this. Yeah, it's okay. My husky just he's in the cone of shame, and so he's got no spatial awareness right now, and I just
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Anyway.
All good.
Yes, so that's our game plan, is to basically get out of the Bone Chariot's way, hopefully like find cover, and like her next turn will be like she's gonna try and find that tablet. But the point is she needs to she's conveyed the most important part to Vale. Can she do that?
So you're communicating essentially that as the rest of your turn to Vale, and then Vale will intercept. And yeah, I mean, what Vale does in their turn, they can absolutely do to intercept a Typhon. 1 second, please. Hey, girl, I got you, babe. So they can absolutely do that. And then, is there anything else action-wise you would like to do on your turn before you pass the torch to Vale?
Take cover. Find cover.
Find cover. You can absolutely do that. You can observe, and then the effects of your observation and pattern recognition will be resolved at the beginning of your next turn. Cool?
Copy that. That sounds awesome.
Okay. So, all right. as you make this decision, you feel a terrible pain. You're able to resist, but that resistance comes at a physical price. You feel cold flame, which is your blood, a phoenix's blood, begin to trickle out of the corners of your eyes and a little bit out of your nose. You gain an affliction card into your discard pile, and I know you don't have any, but those will be between now and next session. You'll add that into your deck. And what an affliction card is, essentially when you draw up a hand, if an affliction card appears in your hand, you will take 1 wound, and you must then pass the chant to someone near you. If you're alone, you're fine. But if there's no mortal around you and you have an affliction card pop up due to the chant, you will transmit the chant automatically to them.
Cool.
So you now feel the urge to chant. And when an affliction card comes in your hand, you join in before regaining yourself. Okay? Vale, it is your turn.
Vale's going to intercept.
Okay, Vale intercepts. We won't have to resolve that in the check. It's very easy to intercept. Your horse becomes in path with theirs. You see Atitha's eyes wide. The eyes are conveying the horror that Atitha feels. You're seeing blood, human blood come out of the corner of their eyes, a little bit out of the corner of their mouth, and even like in their pores, like they just got waxed, like literally, like just like that dotty patchiness on like certain parts of the skin where blood is starting to come out, and they're joining in the song, and periodically they are intimating a beat by thumping their chest or their arms or their shoulders. Except every time they do that, they're not stopping themselves like I am. Like you're hearing crunches every time they do that. You feel the pull to join in. You're able to resist it and tamp it down. You will add an affliction card to your discard pile, which again I'll have for everybody next week. And you may take your action.
I'm going to tackle her.
You're going to tackle her?
Mm-hmm.
You jump off. Go ahead, just give me a. What's your pick? Actually, this isn't considered an attack. You can dial down the damage, but we're going to go through this mechanically because, frankly, Atitha's stat block has now changed. I did not prep this card for Jake, but they are essentially now a 1 health level chanter mob. They have a single health level of 3. So you can volunteer to restrain your attack, but in order to do what you're doing, I'm going to need you to narratively describe it and pick a combat style, please.
I'll go with combat style frostbite.
Okay.
And Vale's going to kind of rear up on her horse and balance and launch herself. So she kind of clips Atitha, not like ramming right into her, but kind of like grabbing as she flies by and pulling her down, mostly with her landing on top of Vale.
Got it. Go ahead and give me an attack spread, and we won't resolve this as damage. I will consider above a certain threshold a success to incapacitate them, because I think that's what you're going for. Okay. And I know we're 2 minutes out already, but we're going to wrap this up real soon.
8.
That works. No need to burn sparks on that one. You're able to do that. You're able to hold them and restrain them. They're struggling. They're thrashing against you. But even as a shrouded phoenix, you contain supernatural strength that they don't. They are possessed of a spirit. Essentially, now you know that the chant is almost like a gestalt spirit on its own. It is memory fragments of these people who were murdered a long time ago, and it is operating their body. In a if not entirely their mind. Atitha still is the person you know as Atitha is still aware of what's happening. She's still in there. If you're able to cleanse whatever the source of this was, then in theory she could heal from this. People who are infected with the chant die mostly from exposure or bludgeoning themselves to death, or just dehydration, just not drinking water or eating. And as such, they can usually last for a few days. So in theory, you'd be able to help. But for right now, you are holding her and restraining her. We're going to pass the torch to Rama. We can resolve one quick thing with you before we bounce.
Okay.
What would you like to do?
Crap. So yeah, I'm gonna look around the room. I know I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to know about like what's happening outside, like and how much is coming through the feather.
I'll say you're getting flashes of all of this, almost like if you've ever seen Run Lola Run, like those little quick snapshots. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Beans.
Yeah.
Cool. So then I'm gonna see if somewhere in this cottage I can find like a piece of the like you said there's like a chant tablet, right? If I can find a bit of it.
The known ways in which the chant is transmitted is through a tablet that the Whisperer usually has on them. That is
Okay,
that
it's
is
on them.
active. Usually, that is active information you had. That's intel that you gathered from Wing 018 when
Cool.
they first encountered the chant.
All right. Then yeah, I think the best thing she can do is try to quickly gather up Crash's ash and then run outside to see what she can do to like join the fray.
You gather her ashes. As you do so, you hear Crash.
Oh, hello?
And Crash simply says, "There's no tablet." And that's where we'll leave off for tonight. We will resolve the rest of your action first thing on what will actually be the conclusion of Mission 002, Breaking Away. The thing that you know in this moment is that phoenixes, once they're ash, they are in the crucible. The very notion of a phoenix being able to leave any kind of memory imprint on their ash or anything like that is heretofore unheard of. Unless they are an attendant spirit.
What? Okay. Oh
When a
God.
phoenix dies from health levels but still has spark, they can choose to bond to a wingmate. And Crash has bonded to you. At dawn, they will go back into the crucible, but for now, they have bonded to you.
Oh, buddy. I think through a bunch of like sort of tears that are reflecting a sunset that isn't in the world. She's just sort of weeping and just, I'm sorry I couldn't save you, but we'll, okay. And it just runs back out.
And you just hear her say, "It's cool."
This is very chill of you.
And with that, we'll wrap up tonight's session of Operation Emberfall. Everybody, thank you so much. Very lore-heavy episode tonight, as needed.
Eternally cursed. We love this.
Yeah, you've got, like I said at the very beginning, I think in our pre-game sessions, a lot of Phoneix Dawn Command is making the best out of multiple bad choices.
I love it.
So that's what we have to look forward to, y'all, for the rest of the season. So thank you again to my fabulous wing. Thank you again to QueueTimes for hosting us as usual. Please follow, make sure your notifications are turned on. You can watch all the other great programming that we've done here on QueueTimes. Watch everybody else on their shows. You can follow me on Twitter if you want, but I don't really do much other than just be stupid. But thank you again, and until then, Dawn Command, fall out.